Hino Kamikagura. Hi everyone, I'm going to react to Demon Slayer season 3, episode 5, Bright Red Sword. And last episode, Tanjiro and Nezuko, they fought really hard, but then they passed out after the wind one did his thing. And then at the end there, you saw the girl Hashira getting news from her crow, telling her to go back to the village because stuff is going down. So she's making her way there, and I'm guessing this episode we're gonna see her in action. So I'm looking forward to that. And then what's again? Bakugo, what's your name over here? Genya. Goodness. Genya was chanting some kind of sutra thing last episode that even though he's supposed to be dead, he's not dead. And then I read a comment and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll see it play out on the screen. So that's what happened last episode. And before we get into this one, if you guys have a reaction, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and please consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/feelingme. And I'll start this episode. And here we go. I've been here just like looking through the episodes again, because the episode again, because it was just so awesome. Like I went back and saw that Tanjiro move, the exploding the Sun Halo Dragon dance, the Sun Halo Dragon head dance. Yeah, that was so cool. Like it was so cool. It's so beautifully animated. Like. You know, when Nezuko grabbed hold of the sword, and I'm like, there has to be a reason why she's holding on to it, you know. And then they were in the rubbles over there, and she still had hold of it, and then you see the blood on her hands and everything. And then, you know, we go away from them for a while, go to our other people, and then we come back. And I saw the sword being like at first the blood was like just by her hand, right? But then the next time they showed the sword, it was like all over her blood was like all over it. And I'm like, wait, is she trying to infuse his sword with her power and stuff like that? And just as I was about to say, that's when the thing activated. I'm like, oh my gosh. And that's when the title of the episode made sense, because the title of the episode was Bright Red Sword. And at first I thought maybe it might have been Kanjiro. It might have been her sword, because it was sort of like pink-ish, you know. So it's sort of like a reddish color, you know. So I'm like, is that what they're talking about? But then this happened. I'm like, oh, this is it, you know, Bright Red Sword. And then he just cut off all 3 of their heads. Like, it was just so beautiful the way he just cut their heads off. And I'm glad that after he did it, he was like, he kept remembering when he cut off Gyutaro's head off last season, you know, how it felt and everything. And that's how he was able to do this. He was able to summon like those feelings, whatever he needed, he used in that moment. He summoned the hero basically and used this to cut off all of their heads. And then he's like, I can do this now, you know. And then he's like, okay, let me cut off the 4th one. And then he turns around. Genya's over there with the 4th one's head in his hand. And then he turns around. And he was his teeth, he was all diminished looking, okay? He was diminished looking. He looked like a demon. And I said this, when was it? Well, I don't quite remember. It was the episode where they were talking, and then he asked, Tanjiro and him were talking, and then Tanjiro asked, like, what happened to your tooth? The one that you lost when you were in the that water or whatever, the one that he lost. Where is it? Then he's like, no, you were seeing things. And he's like, no, here's the tooth in my hand and stuff. So I'm like, did the teeth grew back up? And if it did, does he have some kind of demon powers or something? Because only demons in this show can regenerate so quickly, you know. So I'm like, okay, is it part demon? Like, what happened? And then last episode, when the episode ended, I was like reading the comments on Crunchyroll and everything, and I was so sure that I was not gonna read any spoilers, because usually they mark the any comment that's spoilerish, they mark it as spoilers. So if you don't click on it, you're not gonna see it. So I'm just like reading through it, and then I came to this particular comment that basically, okay, spoilers for those who don't know anything about Genya. Like, spoilers, give me like a couple of I'll mark spoilers over there. So it's like, I read the comment, and then the thing tells me that he eats demons, and I'm like, huh? Like, the person was like, I can't wait for him to eat a demon. And I'm like, okay, so is that how he gets his powers, by eating demons? You know? So when this happened here, and then you see him basically looking like a demon or whatnot. So I'm like, okay, that must be why, you know, probably because he ate a demon. That's why he looks like that. I don't know. I'm not totally sure, but that's what I thought about it. So spoiler over. Now, they started this episode with what's my boy's name? Tokito. Muichiro Tokito. Okay. They started the episode with Tokito carrying Kotetsu, and then they were making their way to that swordman that was supposed to make Tokito a new sword. So they were making their way there, and then they found him, and then they saved him, and he asked for the sword, and he's like, yeah, I made you a new one, and that Tanjiro told me to be nice to you or something. I don't know. Tanjiro spoke well about him, I guess, to this swordsman. So he's like, Tanjiro did? I'm like, oh, Tanjiro ka or whatever. So they were making their way to the cabin where the sword was, and Tokito just yanked them back because he felt the presence of the upper 5, Gyoko. He felt his presence there. And this guy came out, and he's like, what's so important about this place that you are here or whatever? Then he's like, well, let me show you my creation. I'm like, we see the bodies of these swordsmen, and then you see these swords that are piercing them, and he's like, this is the wondrous part of it or whatever. And then he like turned the sword, and the guy was suffering so much. I'm like, and then you see Tokito getting angry, and then he went for Gyoko, but then Gyoko sort of like disappeared from the one vase and then showed up in another someplace else. And I'm like, okay, how many vases are there? I'm like, okay, did they create all kinds, like many vases, like all over this village, so that he can sort of like jump through each one of them if one gets slashed or something, But then the way Gyoko was angry about the vase being cut and everything. Tokito was saying that, if I remember correctly, that if you cut, the head, of course. He said if you cut this guy's head off, then he's gonna die, which makes sense because he's the main demon, The others were just creations of his, where you have the vase there, so when you slash the vase, then they die. But he is the main demon, so you need to cut his head off. And then he was about to cut off his face again or something. I don't quite remember. He brought out some fishes that launched these blades at him. He was able to evade those, but then those fishes turned around and was launching the blades at Kotetsu and the other swordsmith, and then he jumped in there, tried to stop all of them, but some got through and pierced him. And the Gyoko basically told him that he was saving these worthless people and whatnot. And I'm like, this has been Tokito's thing ever since this season started, like when he was running back to where Tanjiro and Hantegu, I think that's the upper fourth's name, where they were, because that's where he was with Tanjiro and everything, and then he got away, and then he was making his way back. So, excuse me, as he was making his way back, he was having this internal monologue about needing to save basically the important people, like the chief and all of that. You needed to save those and those people first before even taking care of the little ones. And that's what you see Kotetsu over there dealing with the demon. And were he to follow that logic that he had, he would have left Kotetsu to die. And that's basically what this comment that Gyoko made reminded me of, how he had this logical brain about doing the most important things first and everything, and that other things are worthless that you don't need to worry about. And then this guy brought that back up to him, and then, that was before he spoke to Tanjiro, and Tanjiro started changing his mind, and then he started remembering some things that he didn't quite, those memories that are still shrouded in mist, and he said that someone told him something like that before, that maybe he was worthless or something. I believe I said at one point in a previous reaction that I felt like he didn't used to be this logical, that something must have happened that made him change like that. And then as I was watching the outro for this particular episode, and you see him surrounded by, I think it was 2 people, and they were fishing, and then he was smiling. He has this big smile on his face. Now he's all sort of like devoid of emotions. So that basically proved to me that he didn't used to be like this. It probably was after what happened that made him a Hashira. That's what changed him, and he's now the way he is. And I feel like his interactions with Tanjiro and other people are gonna probably make him not completely turn back to the way he was, but at least not be so closed off anymore. I don't know. But then he was still facing Gyoko, and then Gyoko used this water prison thing, and now he's like stuck in there. And yeah, that's where we left off with him. And the other sword, Kotetsu and the swordsmith, Kanemori, something like that, they ran away. And I was asking myself, why don't y'all sort of like try to make your way into the cabin and get him the sword that he needs? Because the sword he's using right now is like chipped and it's not in good form. So I'm like, give him a new sword, I don't know, we'll see. So then we go to Kanroji. The villagers were doing their best, but and then she just like jumping in. She was so fast, so quick with the way she was slicing those visits of the demons and stuff. She just that, and they kept running up to the chief. The chief was there was this bigger demon with, I think he had 4 visits on his head, on his body, and she got in there and she did the first one. What was it called again? Shivers of Love, or First Love. Yeah, Shivers of First Love, and then she saved the chief, right? So that was it with her, and Tanjiro and Nezuko. I think I talked about them already. What else happened? During his after the Nezuko activated his sword and made it the exploding blood sword and whatnot, he had this memory of this woman that was saying how swords, Demon Slayer sword turned red during battle or something or other like that. And I was looking at the woman. First of all, I looked. There was the man there, right? That sort of looked like Tanjiro, but with longer hair, like he had a ponytail or what not in the back. And then they switched to the woman, and I'm like, just as I was thinking, wait, is this the woman that gave birth to the baby that that sword myth, the one with the mark and everything was there? And is that the same woman? And that's they switched to her to the swordsman. I'm like, okay, so it's the same person. So it's that memory that he's been having a dream about, inherited memory, whatever. About, so the woman was saying how this sword myth had this, his sword was usually black, but then during the middle of battle it turns red and whatnot, and that's basically what happened when it comes to Tanjiro, his sword being now this reddish color thanks to Nezuko, and he used that to defeat the demons. And as he was just standing there with the sword, you see the one of the Sekido, yeah, he's the one that has the anger, the reddish one. He was the one that kept at first was like, this guy looks like the inherited memory from Muzan or whatnot. Muzan memory shows the swordsmith that had the red sword that almost beheaded Muzan, and Tanjiro looked exactly like this person. And then the first demon that approached Tanjiro also had that vision for a second there, where you see Tanjiro, you see the swordsmith, and then his mark like grew, like the reddish mark or whatever, it grew on his face. That was the same thing as the one that the first swordsmith had and whatnot. So yeah, they had a vision, and then head off. All three of them head off, and then the fourth one said it's off, and Gainer's holding it, and then he's like a demon. So it's like, what's gonna happen? I don't know. So that's what happened this episode. And before what will we do? Thank you guys for watching. And if you like this reaction, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe. And if you want to see my reaction to the next episode, you can do so by checking out my Patreon at patreon.com/filmini. And you can also see the full for this reaction there as well. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye. Whoever loves me will keep my word, says